Today, Oakland Police Chief LaRon Armstrong will be discussing the fatal traffic collision that occurred early Sunday morning in the 5400 block of International Boulevard. As always, the chief will take all questions following his statement. Without further delay, I'll turn it over to Chief Armstrong.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to send my condolences out to the family of this tragic event that occurred on Sunday morning. Sunday morning, the Oakland Police Department began investigating a fatal collision that occurred at about 2 a.m. On June 26, 2022. The incident occurred in the 5400 block of International Boulevard. Officers were dispatched to an injury collision involving 4 pedestrians that were struck in the area. Upon arrival, officers discovered an unresponsive male and 3 additional males suffering from minor injuries related to the incident. Emergency aid was provided, and unfortunately, 28-year-old Hayward resident Sokai Lolo Manaye was pronounced deceased at the scene. The 3 other victims were transported to a local hospital and were listed in stable condition. Speed was a factor in this investigation, and it appears that the vehicle was involved in sideshow activity related prior to the collision. Preliminary investigation shows that a 19-year-old Oakland resident was driving a Nissan 350Z traveling eastbound on International Boulevard at a high rate of speed. He was operating in a designated bus zone. Prior to the collision, 2 officers attempted to stop the vehicle, traveling nearly at 100 miles an hour. The officers could not keep up with the vehicle, and the officers disengaged the vehicle. The vehicle continued down International Boulevard, where the Nissan struck another vehicle in the roadway, causing that Nissan to spin out of control. The Nissan struck several parked vehicles and motorcycles within the 5400 block of International Boulevard, which then struck a pedestrian that was on the sidewalk. We immediately opened an administrative investigation into this tragic incident. And to be proactive, today I have placed 2 Oakland police officers on administrative leave to investigate their involvement in this incident. This case is being investigated by OPD's Homicide Division, our Internal Affairs Division, Oakland Community Review Agencies, CPRA, which is our protocol when handling these serious investigations. It is unknown at this time if drugs or alcohol played a role in this collision. Again, officers arrested 19-year-old Arnold Lindowdy. Mr. Lindowdy was transported to Alameda County Jail. The case has been forwarded to the Alameda County District Attorney's Office for charging of attempted murder, vehicular manslaughter. We've been in contact with the district attorney and expect charges to come forward soon. With that, I'll take any questions.
Chief, why would 2 officers be put on administrative leave? What's the concern there?
Well, anytime you have a collision that leads to someone's death, like we have in this event, and you have some information and evidence that shows that your police cars may have been in the vicinity or made contact with that vehicle, we want to thoroughly investigate our involvement. I think it's important that we make sure that whatever involvement we had with this incident, that we fully investigated to make sure our officers were following policy, following laws, and that they were in compliance with the department's expectations.
Might that possibly include rate of speed?
We'll examine all of those things: rate of speed, permission to be involved, all the policy-related requirements will be investigated in this case.
And the person who was killed was at the sideshow or was struck? No, the person was struck during the chase.
Yeah.
That was how that happened.
The pedestrian that was struck and unfortunately lost his life as a result of this was not involved in any sideshow activity. He was there with appears to be friends or relatives, and unfortunately this incident affected him, obviously. The collision was a collision that happened at a really high speed. Cars ended up spinning around, and unfortunately he happened to be on a curb where a vehicle landed.
Do you think the officers were involved in any sideshow activity, or this is just related to the chase?
No, I think that the vehicle, the suspect vehicle in this case, the Nissan, was involved in sideshow activity. We have been able to confirm that. The officers know that there was an initial attempt to stop the vehicle, but beyond that, we still need to continue to investigate that.
And what makes you able to connect the driver to the sideshow?
We have information that corroborates that, as well as video evidence as well.
Chief, we've gone over this many times.
Yep.
We've got a real problem with sideshows in the city of Oakland. We've got them everywhere. There were a series of incidents in Santa Rosa a couple weekends ago involving burned vehicles and people injured. You still have a special team that responds to these, right?
Yes, we do have a dedicated sideshow team that was deployed that evening, addressing sideshow activity. Sideshow has been an issue for many cities. Oakland, has been affected by sideshow for many weekends. I think what's, sad about this situation is that the driving this vehicle at a high rate of speed is what caused this tragic event that shouldn't have happened. And so again, it's important that we hold ourselves accountable to make sure that we look into our involvement to make sure that everything that we did was in compliance with our department policies.
And no other charges or pursuing anyone for charges related to that sideshow at this time?
Not at this time. The only one we're seeking charges on is a suspect that was arrested for the vehicular manslaughter.
So was there any type of attempts to try and intervene and stop that sideshow? We know that's something that law enforcement agencies are trying to do more and more of.
Yeah, we continue to always seek to intervene in sideshow when safe to do so and when we have enough resources to be able to address it. We did not take any sideshow intervention operation on regarding this particular incident. There was no specific operation that we were doing at that time that would have led to this particular event.
Didn't OPD recently get a drone? And are you using it for the purposes of identifying cars in sideshows?
We were approved for a drone. We have not used them or deployed them in a sideshow yet. Well, we'll see if that is the appropriate technology to use. I think we're looking at what it takes to get that done. We want to make sure we can get in close enough proximity. There's some logistical things that we have to both logistically and tactically do to make sure that it's safe to do so. Safe for the drone, but also safe for the drone operators to be able to keep eyes on the drone while we oversee a particular event if we were to use it. But we have not used it at that for sideshow yet.
And also, Chief, this is a little hypothetical, but assuming that the officers on leave are exonerated, if that's the right word, how does the department deal with the potential of a civil lawsuit that even if all the monitoring agencies find the officers did nothing wrong, you guys can still get sued by the family? Is that a likelihood, and is there anything you can do about that?
We don't know what future circumstances might happen, but what's important to us is that we thoroughly investigate it. We owe it to this community, we owe it to the families to make sure that if there was any involvement by the Oakland Police Department, that it is thoroughly vetted and make sure that we are following our own policies. And that's really what being accountable as an organization is about. It's about willing to look into incidents that you're involved in to make sure officers are doing the right thing, make sure they're following their policies, and when they're not, making sure that we're willing to hold them accountable. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to look thoroughly into this. We've already begun that investigation, and we anticipate that at some point we'll have a finding to discuss.
When do you think that will be?
I don't have a timeline for when it will get done, but we will. Our investigation has already started, and we'll continue to investigate until we come to a finding within the timeline specified by policy.
We have time for one last question. There's one last question. We can take it, otherwise we'll wrap it up.
How do you feel about this?
Well, I always feel saddened by several fatal collisions that we have had in the city of Oakland. I came before the media last week just talking about a fatal collision in our downtown that unfortunately a deaf resident of our city lost his life in front of his children. And so the speed in which people are traveling in cars, whether related to Sideshow or just driving in our community, is it's just far too fast. It is unsafe, and it's putting the public at risk. And unfortunately, back-to-back weeks, we've seen tragedy as a result of speed and unsafe driving. And so it really echoes the fact that we need much more traffic enforcement to slow people down. We need to have more presence at Sideshow so that we can address some of the speed that we see in which people are driving at, some of the activity, reckless activity that people are engaged in, to make sure people know that there's going to be some accountability. It's not just police officers that need to be held accountable. It's those that come in and be involved in this unlawful activity that also need to be held accountable, because we can't continue to accept this because it's leading to tragic outcomes for families.
Thank you very much.